Hey y'all, welcome back to MovementLink. So today I wanted to talk about something that we're super passionate about, and mainly it just comes from years and years of experience trying it one way and just having to finally accept the reality of what this kind of balance of training and testing needs to be. So what am I talking about when I say testing? I mean coming in every single day, going into your gym and going for time, trying to get as many reps as possible, lift as heavy as you can, without the added balance and focus of training to develop positions and all these other things. So when we put scores as a priority, we have to do a lot of things to get better scores. And when that is always the priority, we have a ton of gaps in our fitness and in our health that take a little bit to come and show up, but they always show up. So let's take a look at this. What are the pros and cons of testing every single day? The pros, let's start there because this is kind of why it gets popular. And before we kind of jump into these, I think the biggest one is just the short-term results that you get from testing every day are astronomical. They are crazy. So if you are just getting started in a program like CrossFit and you are testing every single day, for the first few months, maybe up until a year, the progress you're going to make is crazy good. So what we want to keep in mind is that we want to be able to have amazing progress and set ourselves up for the future. In this scenario, we can have our cake and eat it too, but it involves testing and training and mixing these together like we'll talk about later. So that is why so many people fall for this testing trap. Mainly because when we're going for scores every day, the intensity, it is really high to get that intensity up. And we know intensity is really the driver of a lot of the results that we're going to get. It's also really easy to overload. So if we're going to keep improving, we have to continue to push ourselves to do things that we've never done before in our lives. And our body adapts. So this principle of overload, we use it in our training all the time. And if we are testing every workout, it is really easy to overload in your workouts because you're constantly trying to do something faster, heavier, better than you did before. In my opinion, it's just fun. And actually, we can kind of put this on the cons list. I probably should have. It is a ton of fun. But what you realize is that if you're going to do this stuff long term, getting your brain into that go mode all the time really wears on you. So that fun really goes away somewhat quickly. And so when you have that balance of training and testing, now when you come back to the testing workouts, there's still a ton of fun, even if you've been doing it 10, 15, 20 plus years, stuff like that. On testing days, you're getting data points. So we're able to write down how much you lifted, how many reps did you get, how fast did you go. We hold your movements to these standards so we can compare the work you did today versus 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 10 years from now, and so on. And we can track kind of your progress and how we tweak your workouts. Are you going this way? Are you going this way? And we can really use kind of a scientific approach to our programming and to testing to see where you are, to kind of see if what we're doing makes sense for you. And it's functional. Out in the real world, it's not a hold your body in these perfect positions. Out in the real world, is you got to put it to use, and it's about getting work done in efficient ways possible, so we need that. So before we jump into the cons list, what happens a lot, especially on the internet, is we see pros of one thing, and so there's a camp that goes all in. We see cons of one thing, so there's a camp that says we should never be doing this. And almost all the time, you just have to take everything in context, but almost all the time, we should be balancing everything out. So I'm not saying to never test. So I want to be clear about that before we get into the cons list here. All right, so cons of testing every single day. We start developing our technique for the standards that we're holding ourselves to testing. For example, we do a bunch of workouts that have push-ups in it. If it is a testing day, if I'm in a competition, if I'm competing in push-ups, I'm going to almost drop from the top and slam onto the ground to get a little bit of a bounce so I can press. I'm going to mess around with going wide, going narrow, and I'm going to change my grips up a lot. And it's all about pacing and avoiding burnout to get the most work done in a certain period of time. Versus if we were training, we're going to really put that focus on getting the right muscle stimulus and the right muscles involved to do everything perfectly. But as soon as you put a clock and I'm trying to beat an old score, now it's hard to do things in a slow, perfect way and take a score. These things don't kind of jive. So what happens is if we're testing every single day, we never get that layer of technique practice deep enough to actually develop the technique and to aesthetically develop your body the way we want to. So when we test every day, really what we're doing is we're prioritizing performance here at MovementLink. Performance is not the only thing we care about. We care about it a lot, but we also care about aesthetics. So what you look like, we care about your tissue and joint health, and we care about your overall health and wellness. And there are a ton of things that we might do for performance athletes that would actually be at a detriment to aesthetics, tissue and joint, and overall health and wellness. Something off the top of my head here is a ton of people, as soon as they start getting into CrossFit and lifting, almost always if it's someone that's not trying to lose weight, the first thing they immediately start talking about is they want to gain weight. How do we gain weight? Now this is a pure goal that is directly related only to performance, maybe if you're doing it the right way. But the aesthetics and then the overall health and wellness of trying to gain weight just for gaining weight's sake is usually at a big detriment to overall health. So when we are only caring about the number on the bar, our technique is going to be for that number and not for transferring out to real life. And maybe some of our outside of the gym practices and other things are going to be only for that number and not for the big picture here. The other thing is when we're testing every day, we're prioritizing performance, but not overall performance. We're not prioritizing your performance 6 months from now. If we were doing that, then we would have to include a lot more training and practice. What we're doing is we're prioritizing performance in the moment. So we're prioritizing what can you do right now today, and we do that every single day over and over again. So that's the big mistake, is just taking this stuff too far. So what is the right amount of testing? In my opinion, and this is what we've done for years and years with great success, is it's about 20% of your workouts should be kind of in this testing range. And so for us, what that looks like is usually it's about 1 per week. And then we have fun, and about every 3 or 4 months or so, we do a benchmark week where every single day is a new test, just so we get kind of that bigger picture competition going in. But in general, throughout the year, we're looking at doing 1 testing workout a week, 1 workout where you're going as hard as you can, you're using the techniques you know, and you're putting it into the functional real world application of getting work done. And then the other 80% of your workouts, the priority, it doesn't go into we're going to go slow, we're going to do all these things, but the priority goes into developing technique and developing our muscles and our body and our strength and our cardio, develop everything so when we go to test, we are better. So going back to it, that's kind of, we get sucked into the testing because it's fun in the beginning. It's what we think we should do. It's for time. It's an AMRAP. It's for reps. We're trying to beat this person next to us and all of these things. But we lose sight of the way to actually get better and better and better and better and better is to mix this training and this testing. So my recommendation is, and it depends how you're doing it now, and some people need to bump up the testing, but typically if you're a CrossFitter or doing something like CrossFit, typically we need to bump down the testing, and about once a week go hard. The other thing you're gonna find is the burnout feeling and that grind feeling kind of goes away. And then now a testing day comes, and instead of going testing, where even though you're trying to give it 100%, you're really only giving it about 90% of what you're capable of. Now when we get here, we're truly giving it 100% of what we're capable capable of. And so the intensity, the overload, and all of these things skyrocket. So not only does this kind of look like the Pareto rule, the 80-20 distribution, where that says 20% of your efforts contribute to 80% of your results. This 80-20 is kind of like that. So when we use training to support our body, recovery, get us better, improve technique, yada, all of these things, then when we go hard in those 20%, the gains we get from that are just astronomical. So there's a bunch of pros and cons to testing. There's a bunch of pros and cons. We could make a same pros and cons list to only training without the testing. So the thing to keep in mind, I'm not saying don't test. I'm saying if you're testing every single day, you've probably got a bunch of gaps and a bunch of holes, and you're probably not realizing your full potential. All right, I hope this helps. Talk to y'all soon.